The following contains descriptions of physical violence, sexual violence, and graphic descriptions of autopsies.
Hey listeners, welcome to episode 91 of TGIC Podcast. I'm Jillian,
And I'm Izzy.
and today we're going to be covering a serial killer case, which we haven't done in a really long time. It's going to be a lot. This is a really heavy case, so I just wanted to put that warning up front. I know we have a trigger warning, but this is just a really insane, fucked up series of cases. And we're actually going to be splitting this episode into two parts, just because the information's so dense. So we won't leave you hanging for too long. This first episode will be out, and then we'll have the next part out for you on March 5th, which is, I think, 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah,
I guess before we get started, hello everybody. Sorry we took a little bit of a hiatus there.
yeah,
We're happy
I
to
was
be
honestly
back
going to skip
though.
that part because I feel like every time we come back, we're just sorry, we haven't recorded in a minute.
Sorry guys, sorry. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
the it's been
but now
hard.
you're
We're
getting
in
two
two completely
episodes,
different,
so
yeah, you're getting 2 episodes. Jillian and I are in two completely different time zones. We're 6 hours apart, so
yeah. So
that's
trying to
why
find a
we've
time
had
to
such
record
trouble.
is difficult. We thought it was hard when we were in the same time zone.
Little did we know it could get harder. Anyways.
Okay, let's get started with a timeline. So, January 15th, 1974. That morning, Dennis Rader parked. Oh my God, I didn't say what case we were covering.
Oh my God.
I'm
We're
such a
so
silly goose.
rusty.
Guys, today we're going to be covering the serial killer BTK, also known as Dennis Rader. He has been identified and convicted. I will be referring to him by his name Dennis throughout this whole thing because he wants to be called BTK, so therefore I'm not going to call him BTK.
Yeah, no, the fucker gave himself that nickname, so we will be using his God-given name, or I guess his parent-given name, Dennis Rader.
Sorry, in most situations, actually, I would like to say in all other situations, I will use your preferred name and pronouns, but sorry, Dennis, not happening for you.
Not for you, we are not calling you BTK.
Anyway, so January 15th, 1974. That morning, Dennis Rader parked his car and walked to the home of the Otero family in Wichita. I knew how to
Wichita.
say it like yesterday. Wichita. Thank you.
Wichita.
I
Wichita.
practiced. I practiced saying it and I just looked at the word and I was like, fuck, I don't know.
Yes, Wichita.
Wichita, Kansas. He had been stalking this family for a few weeks after he saw their mother, Julia Otero, taking her kids to school. That morning, Dennis snuck over the fence into the family's backyard and he cut all of their phone lines. While he was in the yard, the family's 9-year-old son, Joseph Jr., who everyone called Joey, he came outside to let their dog out. When this happened and Dennis was in the backyard, Dennis confronts him and held him at gunpoint and kind of pushed him back into the house. When he gets inside, he realizes there are three other members of the Otero family that were home: Joseph Sr., who's their dad, Julia, the mom, and 11-year-old Josephine. The family had three older siblings. I think they were all between the ages of 12 to 15, roughly. Um, and they had already gone to school that day. When Dennis came in, he told the Oteros that he was a wanted man in California and that everything would be okay as long as they just gave him what he wanted. But this is a part of, you'll see later, it's like a part of his ploy where he kind of goes with the story and then he wants his victims to make it seem like it's okay, like he just wants money and he'll go, when he actually really just wants to torture them because he's that fucked up of a person. Um,
Yeah, I think that's
so when
honestly
he,
like the scariest part of this, in my
yeah,
opinion.
he tells all these, he kind of gives, he scares them and then he gives them this false sense of hope, oh, everything will be okay if I just cooperate, and then that's not even true.
Yeah.
Um, but when he comes in and he's like, I'm this wanted man from California, and he's like has a gun, the family like thought that he was like playing a prank on them. Like I think also that like that kind of just goes to show like how goofy looking and like idiotic of a guy he was is like because he just like walks in and
Yeah.
he was probably just like I'm wanted in California. And then like yeah, I would think that was a prank
Because,
too. Like
yeah, no, look up pictures of this guy. Like, he looks like a doofus. Like, he kind of reminds me of, like, Dwight Schrute from The Office vibes, if anybody knows. Like,
doofus is
goofy
such a good word.
eyeglasses.
Yeah. Like he's
Yeah.
just so like ridiculous. And that's what makes it even more terrifying that he's such
Hmm.
like a horrible, like terrible human being because it's like it's kind of unsuspecting. Like he doesn't have this like scary aura that I feel like a lot of other serial killers have. Like I guess he's scary only if you know. Like at first, like he's just like, oh, I'm wanted in California. Like no one suspects that he's like a serial killer, you know?
Yeah. No,
So at
100%.
first the family thinks that Dennis is like playing a prank on them, and then Dennis responds and he's like, no, I have a .22 caliber pistol and this is not a prank. Um Dennis forced the family into a bedroom at gunpoint where he bound them with ropes. He put Joseph and Joey on the floor, and then Julia and Josephine were bound on the bed. Dennis also placed a pillow under Joseph after he learned that the reason he was actually home that day was because he was recovering from a cracked rib from a car accident, and so he like put a pillow to make him more comfortable. Which is like another thing that you'll see that he kind of does is like he'll be like, "Oh, I did this.
Yeah.
Wasn't that nice of me?" Like but nothing's nice. You're
Hmm.
torturing and murdering people. Like,
No, exactly. Like, he does it. I don't even know what sick and twisted reason what goes on in his mind where he's like, oh, but I'm actually comforting them. Like, I'm making sure that they're not scared before I torture them and kill them. But it's like,
no, it's
I
so
just don't.
bizarre.
It's like unfathomable. Yeah.
Um, so then Dennis begins to tie plastic bags around the family's heads. So he starts with Joseph and he ties this bag and secures it with ropes. But initially Joseph is actually able to like chew through the bag. Um, and so this is kind of like when you can start seeing how like he's just not a very like coordinated killer. Like he kind of is like, well, shit, like my plan didn't work, and he starts kind of like fumbling around. He doesn't know what to do. Like so, he just like puts another plastic bag over Joseph's head, which eventually does cause him to suffocate. Um, Next, Dennis then strangled Julia with a rope, which knocked her unconscious. Um, she was just out, like she wasn't killed at this point, so she eventually regains consciousness and she starts begging Dennis to leave her children alone, and he just responded by killing her. Um, After failing to suffocate Joseph with one bag, Dennis puts a bag, two t shirts, and another plastic bag over Joey, who's the 9-year-old boy's head, and waits for him to
Oh my
suffocate.
God.
And then this is like, it's unconfirmed because after being caught, he actually denies it, which he confesses to a lot. So it's kind of up in the air whether or not this is true. But apparently there was like a chair positioned in the room, like looking right at where Joey was suffocating. So a lot of people like it was originally believed, I think, by investigators that he had like sat there and watched him suffocate, but Dennis denies this. So whether or not, I mean, as sick and twisted as that is, it doesn't really like change how sick and twisted the rest of it is, you know?
Yeah. It's just like another layer to add on top of everything.
Yeah. Um, so once the rest of the family was deceased, Dennis took Josephine downstairs to the basement. He undressed her and set up a noose, and then asked her if the family had a camera because he wanted to take pictures. She said they didn't have a camera. Josephine then asked Dennis what was going to happen to her, and he replied, well, honey, you're going to be in heaven with the rest of your family. Like, he's just such a, like, creep and so disgusting.
Yeah. Like,
And
disgusting.
I haven't even hit, like, where it even gets more disgusting. He then proceeds to hang her, and while watching her, sorry, this is actually, like, so, like, heavy trigger warning. like while watching her like struggle and suffocate, he masturbated.
I like it actually when I was researching this case, like it made me sick to my stomach. I was like listening to the morbid episodes and like reading like the FBI files and stuff, and it was truly like sickening. Like
Just
what this
disgusting.
man was capable of and what he was doing. And like once we get into his background, you're like, where does this come from? You know, like,
Yeah.
and another like horrific part of like this, like him hanging Josephine was that I don't know if you remember seeing this in the research, but wasn't she like only an inch or two above the ground? Like she was
Yeah.
super close to hovering above the ground, which is like I don't know, it's like unfathomably disgusting and disturbing. I don't know.
Yeah. Um, After he killed Josephine, he left the house and he took the Otero's car and he parked it at a parking lot. It was outside of a Dillon's grocery store. But after he parked, he realized he'd actually left a knife at the Otero's. And instead of, I don't know, just leaving it or like taking his own car back or going on foot, he drives the family's car back to the house, takes the knife, and then goes and reparks at the grocery store. Despite all that stupidity, that like doesn't lead to him getting caught or in trouble or anything. That was like probably one of the like stupidest decisions you could make when trying to cover up a crime, but he manages to get away with it. Later on that day, the older three Otero kids returned after school and they found the rest of their family murdered and reported it to police.
And like apparently, I mean, obviously I can't even imagine the amount of trauma that these kids went through and like everybody who stumbles upon these like crime scenes after he's finished, like they're just all horrifically gruesome. So it's like I don't know. Like I'm really baffled by this case. I think this is probably one of the first ones that we've researched in a very long time where I finished researching and I just like kind of sat there afterwards. Like I was like, I
Yeah.
can't. Yeah. So, April 4th of 1974, after murdering the Oteros, Dennis was emboldened to commit another crime. His next victim was named Catherine Bright. She was a 21-year-old student at Wichita State University. Dennis began stalking her when he believed she either lived alone or just with another woman. After struggling at the Oteros, he decided he wanted to avoid men, and he stalked Catherine for weeks and referred to her murder as quote unquote Project Lights Out. And this is something that he does with almost all of the like murders that he commits is comes up with a nickname. Dennis broke into her home through no, through her back sliding glass door. He was surprised to find no one was home because Catherine's car was outside. He began cleaning up the glass to reduce suspicion when he returned. While waiting, Dennis accidentally discharged his gun, which made him worry that Catherine would smell the gunpowder when she got home. Also, dumbass. What do you mean you
No, he's
like
just like really
accidentally.
stupid. He like the trigger was sensitive and it like fired.
And also, like, you learn later, he was literally in the military. So for him to, like,
Yeah.
make mistakes, like, I don't know. Anyways, so Dennis used the same story that he was a wanted man from California and that he needed food and money. He forced both siblings at gunpoint into one of the bedrooms. He made Kevin tie his sister up and then he tied up Kevin. He used household supplies to tie them up so the crime would appear different than the Otero murders, and he separated them into two different bedrooms and turned the stereo system on really loud to drown out any noise. He tied Kevin to a bedpost and Catherine to a chair. Dennis then went back to the room where Kevin was to strangle him, but Kevin had broken free. They fought for a second, and Dennis shot Kevin in the forehead. He then fired two more times, the first shot hitting Kevin's mouth and the other just barely grazing him. Kevin played dead until Dennis left the room. Then he ran from the house and flagged down the neighbors who took him to the hospital and called the police. Also, insane that Kevin survived being shot
I
in the
know.
forehead
I
and in
know.
the mouth.
And was
Oh my
able to
God.
like gain enough control to like leave and get help.
Yeah, like insane.
Hmm.
Um, so after believing he killed Kevin, Dennis went to the room where Catherine was. She asked about the gunshots, and Dennis said he had shot Kevin, which caused Catherine to fight back. Dennis planned on strangling her, but she fought back too strongly, so he stabbed her repeatedly below her ribcage. After he believed that she was dead, he took her keys and attempted to start Kevin's truck. Obviously, he was unsuccessful in that pursuit. So he ran to where his car was parked at Wichita State University and drove away. When police arrived at the scene, Catherine was alive and attempting to hold a phone, but she could barely talk. She was rushed to the hospital, but ended up dying in emergency surgery, and her brother Kevin survived.
Okay, so in October of 1974, three men actually confessed the Otero murder, and they were being treated in a psychiatric facility and related to those confessions. This made Dennis really mad because he felt like other people were getting the credit for a crime that he committed. So this is when he starts sending letters. So his first letter goes to the Wichita Eagle, which is a newspaper, and in this letter he claims to have killed the Otero family, and he shares details that had not been released to the public previously. Also in this letter, he gives himself the name BTK, which stands for Bind, Torture, Kill. So flash forward about 3 years. As far as we know, Dennis did not commit any other crimes during this time. On March 17th of 1977, Dennis had been stalking a woman and planned on targeting her. But that day when he broke in, there was no one home. And she hadn't come back for a while. So this made him pretty mad, and he decided he was just going to target someone random. So while walking down the street, he found a 5-year-old boy named Stephen Relford, and Stephen was walking home he was at the store buying soup for his mom who was homesick. Um, so Dennis goes up to him and he claims that he was a detective who needed help finding two people. And then he showed him a picture from his wallet, which is actually a picture of Dennis's own wife and daughter. And I guess when Stephen saw it, he just like thought they were his mom and sister. I mean, I haven't been five in a long time, so like I don't
He's a
remember.
little baby. He's like,
I know,
that just that makes me so upset. Like, that makes my heart hurt so bad
I know.
that he just, like, I don't know. Oh my God.
So he thinks that Dennis is showing a picture of his mom and sister, and so he's like, "Yeah, I know where they are. Like, we'll go to my house." So Stephen then brings Dennis back to his house. Um, so when they arrive at the house, Dennis asks Stephen's mom, Shirley Vian Relford, to identify the people in the photo as well. Then he held her at gunpoint and forced himself into the home. He claimed he was a wanted man again, and he was going to be robbing their house. Dennis attempted to tie up Stephen and his younger brother, but he failed to do so and instead forced them into the bathroom and barricaded the door. He found out a little bit later that their younger sister was also home and he forced her into the bathroom as well. He gave them toys and other supplies to make them comfortable while he murdered their mother and threatened to shoot them if they broke free. So I don't really know how comfortable
Horrible.
he was making them, but he then took Shirley to the back room and she threw up and begged him to leave her kids alone. He then handcuffed her and tied her legs to a bedpost. She asked for a glass of water, which he gave her. Then Dennis strangled her with a rope and placed a plastic bag over her head. Dennis said he had planned to kill the children afterwards as well, but around the time that he finished killing their mother, the family phone rang and one of the kids said it was someone who would be visiting soon, so Dennis left in a hurry.
Oh my God. Like, actually,
I
like,
know.
horrific. And like, the fact that he's just finding these people on the street, like that poor little boy. Can you imagine, like,
Yeah,
the guilt that he must carry from that?
I know.
Like, he had
It's
no
so
idea.
sad.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Like, I'm sure that in the video for this episode, my face is just like grimacing the entire time because I
Yeah.
literally, like, I just can't believe that this actually happened.
I know.
So, December 8th of 1977, Dennis stalked his next victim for a while before targeting her. She was a 25-year-old woman named Nancy Jo Fox. He titled this mission hashtag, or not hashtag, sorry, not hashtag, quote unquote, Project Fox Hunt, which is,
He would have used hashtags if that was his time.
he would have, if that was a thing, he would have used hashtags. I don't know why I read a quote, like a quotation mark as a hashtag, but anyways,
He
not
was
funny at
so
all,
he
but
was no, but he was so like dumb and liked like having his stuff like be his. Like his he would have like had a fucking spam account documenting his shit and like with hashtags.
he would have. Or like, can you, oh my God, I shudder to think what he would be like if he had Tinder, like in his time,
Ugh.
like him targeting people on like, oh my God, I don't even want to think about that. Anyways,
Yeah.
so Dennis broke into a back window of Nancy's home, but realized that she wasn't actually in the house. When she returned, she yelled at him to get out of her house and said she was going to call the police. Dennis told her that wouldn't be possible because he had cut the phone lines. He then told her that he planned on restraining her, photographing her, and raping her. Dennis let her use the bathroom after making sure she couldn't escape and ordered her to come out of the bathroom partially undressed. Dennis then took off his clothes and handcuffed her. When she resisted, he said, quote unquote, "That's part of my deal. I gotta have 'em or it won't work." He then climbed on top of her and repeatedly choked her with his belt. He would make her go unconscious and then let her wake up, and then he would do it again. And after doing this repeatedly, he finally killed her.
Jeez.
December 9th of 1977, Dennis called police from a phone booth to report Nancy Jo Fox had been murdered and told them where her body could be found. So horrific, once again. I don't
Yeah.
think there's any parts of this case that aren't.
So January 31st of 1978, Dennis sends a letter to the classified ad department in Wichita. The letter was a poem that started with Shirley Locks, and then in detail described the murder of Shirley Relford. Then he kind of keeps up this pattern of sending in letters. On February 10th of 1978, he sends a letter to the TV station KAKE. In this letter, he said he committed the Otero murders and the murders of Catherine, Shirley, and Nancy. He asked how many more people he had to kill to get national media attention. He also, in this letter, suggested a long list of potential serial killer names for himself in case they didn't like BTK. And he also claims that he was driven to kill people by a supernatural element called Factor X,
Oh
and
my
apparently Factor
God.
X was also responsible for driving Jack the Ripper, Son of Sam, and other serial killers to kill.
He's just
Um,
such a tryhard. Like,
oh
why
yeah,
is
and
he
I'm
like
not even
this?
done. This was not even the only bits of this letter. Also in the letter, he wrote another poem that said, "Oh, death to Nancy," about the death of Nancy Fox. While the letter could not be traced back to any particular person, they were able to trace it to a copy machine at Wichita State University, but without any other information, they really couldn't do much with that. But Dennis was actually a student at Wichita State University at the time, which just explains why they were able to trace it there.
Mm.
Um, so April 1979, at this time, Dennis had been stalking a 63-year-old woman named Anna Williams for a while. He had planned to kill her, but on the day that he broke in, he was there for a long time waiting and she never returned home. So after waiting for several hours, Dennis got really mad and left. But thankfully, not like in the case of Shirley, he didn't decide he was going to target someone else. He just left. On June 15th of 1979, 2 months later, Dennis left a note outside of Anna's house that said, "Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear?" and was signed by BTK. The envelope also had a picture of a naked bound woman and also contained a scarf and two clips, which were taken from Anna's house when he broke in 2 months prior.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Um, I thought that this would be a good time in the episodes to kind of go into a little bit of background on Dennis Rader. Like I've said throughout this episode, Dennis Rader is definitely one of the most fucked up serial killers that I've ever researched. And I think what makes that is because he had a pretty normal childhood. In comparison to a lot of other serial killers that you hear about who have histories of abuse or neglect or traumatic events in their life, or literally anything notable that could lead to them acting this way, Rader was just kind of born this way. Um, Dennis Rader was born in March of 1945 in the city of Pittsburgh, Kansas, to Dorothea Rader, who was a bookkeeper at a local grocery store, and William Rader, who is a former U.S. Marine and was an employee at Kansas Gas. Rader was the eldest of four sons, or Dennis was the eldest of four sons. Both of his parents worked really long hours and were not home much to care for their children. Rader later claims that he felt very neglected. Um, I think it's also important to recognize that his parents were not abusive, just kind of absent. William Rader, his father, was described as being a very like strict disciplinarian and God-fearing, but he was not abusive, by any account. Rader has made claims that he was dropped on his head as a child and that an untreated brain injury is likely what has led to his behaviors, but there's no proof of this. And also, since Rader is kind of obsessed with other serial killers and their tactics, origin stories, etc., he probably said this because there has been a link between like traumatic brain injury that's left untreated and psychopathy. Um, Rader was described as being an average student in school, just not very notable. He was in the Boy Scouts where he first learned how to tie knots. He enjoyed fishing and comic books, just like so many other boys his age at this time. But there was something very different and twisted about him that, like, people didn't recognize back then, but he talked about later. From a very young age, Rader had sadistic sexual fantasies about torturing quote unquote trapped and helpless women. He also participated in zoosadism, which is the torturing, hanging, and killing of small animals. Rader acted on his sexual fantasies and fetishes, which included voyeurism, autoerotic asphyxiation, and cross-dressing. He even spied on his female neighbors whilst wearing women's clothing and underwear that he had stolen from a young age. He was doing all these behaviors. Um, Rader would also masturbate with bindings and ropes around his neck and arms. And all these things he continued doing into his adulthood. Um, in terms of like these sexual fantasies and fetishes, I want to make it clear that like not all people who participate in these things or have these sexual desires are inherently bad or wrong. Rather, what's like really disturbing about all of it is that Rader was number one, very, very young when he started displaying these like behaviors. And he was also acting on these urges in ways that were harmful to others and himself, and also non-consensual. So that's like a completely different thing. And also the fact that like we see examples of all of these coming up in his murders and his acts of like violence later on in life is what makes them so disturbing.
I was
Then,
human sexuality course last semester, and there's a difference between like a paraphilia and a paraphilic disorder, and basically the key difference is if something is consensual or not consensual. And a lot of the things he was doing, which involved, like spying on people and killing small animals, anything that involves like somebody who can't consent or is not consenting, that's considered, well, one, it's considered sexual assault, but also it's considered a paraphilic disorder
mhm,
versus just a paraphilia.
yeah. So just wanted to make that clear at the end of this
Yeah.
episode. But yeah, deeply disturbing. And we'll
Um,
get more into that in the next episode.
yeah. So make sure to tune in 2 weeks on March 5th. We'll have another episode come out where we'll talk about more about Dennis's background and the rest of his crimes and how he is eventually caught and charged. So yeah, in the meantime, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at tgic.podcast. And yeah, tune in 2 weeks for another new episode. Bye.
Bye.